In this video, I'm going to talk about how to protect data that we collect from household surveys that contain sensitive information like full names, personal contact details, etc. So I've got a document in front of me where I've got a structure ID and building type. You saw this document earlier in the module, and I've added a few columns for head of household name, their phone number, gender, and age. And let's imagine that these columns are filled up with personal data that we want to make sure stays protected and only is accessible by a few people that need to have access to this information as part of the data management team. So the first thing I'm going to show you is that this document at the moment is not viewable by anybody except for me. And I know that because it has a lock symbol on the share button. So it's only accessible by me at the moment. Now, my role in this is that I have been overseeing this survey. So it makes sense for me to be the owner of this data set. I'm going to, however, add some people, including Nisera, who is one of my data managers. Nisera is going to be able to edit this document. She's also going to be able to make a copy of it and start doing some of the de-identification work. She'll be able to download a version and maybe save it to a USB stick that goes into a safe that's in our office so that we have a long-term storage of this data set. So now you might be thinking, okay, there's only 2 people who have access to this data set. Well, by default, data editors are also able to share this document with other people. So if I click, let me go back, let me click on that gear in the upper right-hand corner. We see that by default, editors can change permissions and who the document is shared with. Now, as the data owner, I don't want to allow all of my data managers to be able to add new people to this document or pass it along. I want to restrict this, so I'm going to untick that box. Editors can no longer change permissions or share the document themselves. All right, there's also someone else working on the team. Let's say Monica is working on the team, and Monica, I'm going to make her setting as a commenter because she was involved with the field work as a senior data collector. And she knows a lot about some of the challenges that were encountered in the field. And I've asked her to make some comments in this document so that we can understand where there might be duplicates and stuff like that. So I want Monica to be able to see the document and comment on it. So that's why I've set her with this permission. Now, as a commenter, and also as somebody who can just view the data, let me go back to that sharing setting. Commenters and people who view data, by default, as you can see up here in that little gearbox thing again, they are allowed to download the data, print the data, and copy the data. And I definitely don't want people to be able to do that because, again, I'm going to lose the ability to protect this information if it starts to multiply. So I'm going to remove that setting for our commenters. And there's also this option for viewers only, and you'll want to remove that as well. So I've just clicked on the down arrow next to the person's name, and that shows me I can change what kind of permissions they have from there. There's also 2 other options. So let's say that Monica, who's my senior data collector, I'm asking her to make some comments on this document. But in a month from now, when her role is over, I want to remove her access because I don't want her in 2 years from now to still be accessing this personal information. So later on, I can come back here and remove access. Okay. There's one more setting I want to show you, and that is how to transfer ownership. So let's say that I am leaving the organization and Nisera is taking over my role in terms of managing this data set in the long run. Well, I can transfer ownership so that she now has permissions to set who has access to this data. And so that's just by clicking the little down arrow and transfer ownership, and she would become the owner. Only one person can be the owner. You'll notice that everything I've been doing has been under the restricted access. So if I look at this little arrow down here, there is an option to actually unrestrict the document. You never want to do this with protected information. This setting is so that you can make public documents so that you can share it with anyone who has a link, whether or not they're signed into a Google account. So we never want to have this one selected while we're dealing with sensitive information. So let's talk about how to deal with data when it comes out of Google Sheets and how to ensure that it remains protected. So let's say that Nicera, as our data manager, is going to download a copy of this data set onto the organization's computer. So she's going to make a copy and put it on a USB drive. And that's going to go into a safe and get stored long-term. So she's going to push File, Download, Microsoft Excel. So this version of the document coming offline now is now sitting on Nicera's desktop. And anybody who has access to that desktop is going to be able to open this file and see all of this personal data. So what we want to do immediately is to password protect this file. And the way that we do that is pretty simple. We just go to File, and then there's this option to Protect Workbook. And there's a couple of options related to it. You want to select Encrypt with Password. So again, that is File, Protect Workbook, Encrypt with Password. Now, when I select that, I have to enter a password, and it'll make me enter it again. And so now, when I close this document and reopen it, you'll see that we're going to require a password for me to access it. So no one can see the data in this file unless they know this password, and that is what it means to encrypt or password protect your data files.